This is Jeremy Tellman and Dan Barnheiser conducting our interview with Alan Schwartz on his interactions with our KCON honoree for 2026, Bob Scott. The format is just that Dan and I have a couple of questions or three questions to which Alan will respond. And the first question is, what do you regard as Professor Scott's unique contribution to legal scholarship on contracts?
Oh, uh, I um, I think his unique contribution is the best in our field so far as I can look back to the 18th century at intellectual arbitrage. Bob is an excellent lawyer, and he's a great doctrinalist. And I mean, he knows rules, he knows how they fit together. He has a really strong intuitive feeling about how courts perform, informed by decades of experience. But people like that really don't know very much economic theory. And with respect to that, I would say that contracts is what we would in economics call a small group interaction. That is, it's generally two people, on rare occasions three. The economics that Bob knew as of 1980 when he was collaborating with Charlie Getz was price theory, which dealt with how markets function. It didn't deal with small firm interactions. Contracts, the economists developed contract theory out of game theory in the late 70s and 80s and 90s. And there were a bunch of Nobel Prizes for it. Bain Holmstrom, Oliver Hart, Oliver Williamson, a bunch of people like that. And that was the economics. If you're going to do law and economics on a high level, that you really needed to know if you were wanting to be a law and economics contracts scholar. You could be a contract scholar in a lot of ways. I'm not being irredentist about fields, but if you wanted to do law and economics at contracts, that was the relevant next discipline. And unlike a lot of people, Bob put in endless hours learning contract theory as the economists have it. And it was very difficult for him because he didn't have mathematics naturally. But he's very smart. He had a great feeling for incentives and for how people responded to them. And he became a very good intuitive contract theorist as economics people would recognize it. Uh, and and that I think is so he's made in our collaborations a major contribution, not only on the doctrinal side, which is why I originally hooked up with him because I'm not great at that, but he made contributions on the economic side as well. And he is, I think, uniquely, at least in the contracts field, a person who is an A+ level doctrinalist, a traditional lawyer, and maybe an A-, which is a very high grade for me, contract theorist. And I don't know anybody else that has that combination of expertise. And I also think it's a tremendous tribute to Bob that he wanted to remain cutting edge in his field, and he thought, this is what I have to do. And then he really worked very hard to do it.
Okay. I'll take the next question. And this question is important to me because it was actually one of your articles with Bob that really got me super excited about contracts and bargaining power theory overall early in my career. But what was it like collaborating on scholarship with Professor Scott?
Um, Well, I've had a lot of collaborators over the years. If you look at my career, actually even if you just look at law and economics generally, the standard article has two people. Um, Collaborating with Bob was a dream. He was very, as I said, he's very smart. He's absolutely on the merits. The only thing that matters to him are the ideas and how they're laid out. He has no pride of authorship in the sense that I could always play with his prose just as he could play with mine. The bottom line for him is, can we say it clearly, and is it what we want to say? Um, and so I, of all the collaborators I've had, he's essentially been the easiest to work with, because of his complete lack of ego and his intellectual strengths. Um, and there's one other strength that he has that I don't have, which is he has some mystical knowledge of what law review editors like. So if he were to say to me, if you put it that way, we won't get it published, I always would give up. Uh, um, but I think generally, if you were to dream up the attributes of a great colleague to collaborate with, you would have Bob. I mean, we have complementary strengths. The truth is, I'm much better mathematically. So to the extent someone needed a mathematical model in a paper, that I was generally carrying the burden with that. But Bob understood these models very well, and he blended them with doctrine in a way that I really couldn't do. So I think we're better together than separately. The only other thing I'd say about him as a collaborator is he is a taskmaster. Uh, where is it, he would say, maybe 10 minutes after it was my job to do it. So he really was a kind of, in a gentle way, a crack the whip kind of person. It's one of the reasons I guess we got everything out. But he was just a great, if you wanted a collaborator with complementary skills and no ego and just trying to make it the best piece that the two of us could make, that he was that guy.
Great. So, a last question is there anything else you would like to add about your experiences with Professor Scott as a teacher, as a mentor, as a colleague, or as a friend?
Um, well, we have been friends since we started collaborating. We kind of bonded over a dispute, um, which was whether ACC or Big Ten basketball was better. um, uh, but he's a great friend. He was always there for you. He's a considerate, decent guy. When my wife passed away 7 years ago, Bob was a pallbearer and a source of wonderful emotional strength to help me to get through things. Um, and he's a person that he has such great common sense and judgment about life itself that I don't take any life decision that I think is of any consequence without consulting with him, and I generally follow his advice. So one of the great things in my life has been that Bob has been my friend and been there for me. I've tried to be there for him, but it's a little one-sided because he's just so able and strong in himself that he may need a little less help than I do. But he's a great friend, and I know that. I mean, he's obviously a fabulous teacher, and one of the things that's impressed me about him is that he really has students over the years. That is, people whom he has helped, and then went into law teaching or into practice. And I haven't actually personally seen him mentor someone, but I know what people who work with him have to say, and he's obviously a very good mentor too. I'd like to say something bad about him, but I think it's mainly his basketball judgment. But I think it's
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Dan, do you have any follow-up?
I'm going to switch back to the three-person view now. And so I that last line on the basketball, I kind of need that. I think that's going to make it into the montage at the conference.
I think we
We
can bookend the remarks with
yeah,
right.
I think that may end up being sort of the end quote. I don't even have to hear any of the others. We'll see what happens.